It was late evening when Daniel stepped into the quiet cafe near the old harbor. He only wanted a cup of coffee before heading home, but fate had other plans. At a corner table, a young woman was sitting alone, her notebook open, a pen resting in her hand. She looked focused, lost in thought, yet there was something magnetic about her presence. Their eyes met for only a second, but it felt longer. Daniel almost looked away, but she gave a faint smile. An invitation, or maybe just a polite gesture. He couldn't tell. Still, it was enough to make him walk toward her table. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" he asked. Her lips curved slightly. "Not unless you plan to steal my pen, too." That small joke broke the ice, and soon they were talking. Her name was Elena, and she was a writer. She told him she often came here to escape distractions, but tonight, distraction had found her instead, in the form of him. As they spoke, Daniel noticed the way she absent-mindedly played with her hair, or how her laughter lingered just a little too long. There was warmth in her voice, but also mystery, like she wasn't revealing everything. The cafe began to close, yet neither wanted the evening to end. Elena suggested a walk by the harbor lights. The air was cool, the streets quiet, and their steps began to match unconsciously. Daniel felt the tension grow. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the sort that makes your heartbeat race. Their shoulders brushed once, twice, until she finally slipped her arm into his. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "Maybe not yet," he replied, "but I'd like to." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged. Her eyes searched his, testing him, as if deciding whether to let him deeper into her world. By the time they reached the last pier, the city lights reflected in the water like scattered diamonds. She stopped, turned to him, and said softly, "Promise me you're not just another passing story in my life." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Not a story. Maybe a chapter, maybe more." Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but instead she leaned in. The kiss was slow, uncertain at first, but quickly deepened, carrying both the sweetness of something new and the fire of something dangerous. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause. The world was just the two of them, the sea, the night air, and a spark that refused to fade. What neither of them knew then was how much this single night would change their lives forever. The kiss left them both breathless. Elena pulled away slightly, her cheeks flushed, her eyes searching his face. "You're dangerous," she whispered with a smile. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous how?" "Because I don't usually let strangers get this close." "Maybe I'm not a stranger anymore." Her laugh was soft, but her hand lingered against his chest a moment longer than necessary. They stood in silence, the waves splashing below them, until Elena finally said, "I live just a few blocks away. Would you walk me home?" The words carried weight, more than a simple request. Daniel nodded without hesitation. The streets were quiet, lined with old lamps that painted their shadows across the cobblestones. Elena spoke about her writing, unfinished stories, characters she couldn't quite figure out. Daniel listened, but his mind kept drifting back to the warmth of her hand brushing his arm, the playful tone hidden behind her words. When they reached her building, she hesitated at the gate. "This is me." Daniel smiled, though a part of him didn't want the night to end. "Well, thank you for the distraction." Elena tilted her head. "Is that what I was? Just a distraction?" "Not even close." His answer came too quickly, too honestly. She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then with a small sigh, she pulled out her keys. "Maybe you should come up for a coffee." It's too late for cafes anyway. Her apartment was warm and filled with books, sketches, little details of a life lived in quiet creativity. Daniel felt instantly comfortable there, as though he had stepped into her private world. She poured them both coffee, though neither touched it. Instead, they sat on the couch, facing each other. The distance between them seemed to shrink with every glance, every pause in their conversation. Elena leaned back, tucking her legs under her. "You know, this feels like one of my stories. A late-night stranger, a kiss by the water, and now, this." "And how do your stories usually end?" Daniel asked. Her smile was slow, teasing. That depends on the choices the characters make. Daniel leaned closer, his voice low. Then maybe we should make the right choice. The room fell silent again, filled only with the quiet hum of the city outside. Their eyes locked, tension pulling them closer. This time when they kissed, it wasn't hesitant. It was full of the desire they had both been holding back. But just as the moment grew more intense, Elena pulled back slightly, her breathing uneven. "Daniel," she murmured, "I need to know something before this goes any further. Are you the kind of man who leaves when morning comes?" His answer was simple, steady. "No, not if you want me to stay." She studied him for a long moment, searching for truth in his eyes. And for the first time that night, her guarded expression softened completely. "Then stay," she whispered. And in that moment, the night wasn't just about chance anymore. It became the beginning of something neither of them had expected. The morning light crept through Elena's curtains, soft and golden. Daniel stirred awake, realizing he had fallen asleep on her couch. Elena was already up, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, her hair falling loosely over her shoulders. For a moment, he simply watched her. She looked so peaceful, so effortlessly beautiful. But there was something in her expression, something distant, almost sad. "Morning," he said, his voice rough from sleep. She turned, her smile quick but fragile. "You stayed." "Of course I did." For a while, silence filled the space between them. Daniel finally asked, "Are you okay?" Elena set her cup down. "There are things about me you don't know. Things that might make you regret last night," Daniel frowned, moving closer. "Try me." She hesitated, then pulled out an old photograph from the drawer beside her desk. It showed Elena with another man, tall, dark-haired, his arm draped around her shoulders. The smile on her face was radiant. "He was everything to me," she whispered. "But he left. No explanation. Just gone. And since then, I've promised myself not to let anyone close enough to hurt me like that again." Daniel looked at the photo, then back at her. "I'm not him." Her eyes softened, though a trace of fear lingered. "That's exactly what he said when I doubted him." The tension between them was different now, still charged but fragile. Daniel reached for her hand, gently lacing his fingers with hers. "Elena, if this is too fast, I'll slow down. But don't push me away because of someone else's mistakes." She closed her eyes, torn between wanting to protect herself and wanting to believe him. When she finally opened them, there was a spark of hope, mixed with vulnerability. "Then prove it," she whispered. "Prove you're not like him." Her challenge hung in the air, dangerous and intoxicating. Daniel leaned in, kissing her again, this time with more urgency, more promise. The photo slipped from her hand and landed face down on the floor. For the first time in years, Elena let herself believe, just a little, that maybe she didn't have to face her stories alone anymore. The next evening, Daniel and Elena walked through the old city streets, their laughter echoing softly against the stone walls. For the first time in years, Elena felt free, like her heart wasn't chained to the past anymore. But as they turned a corner, everything stopped. A man stood under the street lamp, tall and familiar, his piercing eyes locked onto Elena's, and the color drained from her face. Daniel instantly felt the shift. "Michael," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her ex. The ghost from the photograph. Michael stepped forward, his smile sharp and bitter. "I see you found someone new." Daniel moved closer to Elena, his arm brushing against hers in a quiet promise of protection. Michael's gaze hardened. "Elena, we need to talk. Alone." Her heart pounded. Emotions she thought were buried surged back. Anger, pain, longing. She shook her head. "You don't get to just walk back into my life." Daniel felt the weight of the moment but stayed silent, giving her space to choose. Michael's tone softened, almost pleading. "I made a mistake. I was scared, but I never stopped loving you." The words sliced through her, reopening wounds she thought had healed. She turned to Daniel, whose eyes were steady, filled with something Michael never gave her. Patience, honesty, quiet strength. Tears welled in her eyes. For years she had dreamed of Michael saying those words, but now standing between two men, her past and her present, she finally understood. "No," she whispered, "you left me when I needed you most. And now, it's too late." Michael's face darkened, but Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "She made her choice." Michael glared at him, but there was nothing left to say. With a bitter sigh, he turned and disappeared into the night. Elena trembled, and Daniel caught her in his arms. For a long moment, she let herself cry against his chest, letting the last pieces of her old life shatter. When she finally looked up, her smile was fragile but real. "You stayed." Daniel brushed a strand of hair from her face and kissed her gently, sealing the promise between them. The city around them buzzed with life, but in that moment, it felt like the world belonged only to the two of them. For Elena, the past was over. For Daniel, the future had just begun.